Welcome back to our series, Questions from the Old Testament. Our 8th question today comes from the book of 1 Kings in the Old Testament. 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 9. Who is able to govern this, your great people? In order to give this question context, we'll be reading verses 1 through 15 of 1 Kings chapter 3. Solomon made a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. He took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had finished building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. The people were sacrificing at high places, however, because no house had yet been built for the name of the Lord. Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed and made offerings at high places. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. Solomon used to offer 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And God said, "Ask what I shall give you." And Solomon said, "You have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart toward you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this day. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of David my father. Although I am but a little child, I do not know how to go out or come in, and your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, a great people, too many to be numbered or counted for multitude. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this your great people?" It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this, and God said to him, "Because you have asked this, and have not asked for yourself long life or riches or the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right, behold, I now do according to your word. Behold, I give you a wise and discerning mind, so that none like you has been before you, and none like you shall arise after you. I give you also what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that no other king shall compare with you all your days. And if you walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and my commandments as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days." And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. Then he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings, and made a feast for all his servants. Did you hear about the man who was forced to return his humility award he was given last year? Apparently, you're not allowed to display it. Yes, that's an oldie but a goodie. But it does serve to show that wanting to tell others about how humble we are proves we are not actually that humble. Hey, those are the rules. I don't make them. In another instance, during a major award show, one of the presenters joked that there were actually 2 envelopes. And if anyone really didn't believe they deserved the award, they would give it to the second place candidate in that category. Well, guess what? Nobody turned down their award that night. Solomon truly felt he was at a deficit in regards to his ability to lead God's people. Unlike an election in which the most popular wins in his campaign on behalf of their worthiness, the leader of Israel at this time was born into that position. When David came near to death, there was a struggle for the throne when Adonijah declared that he was king. Oddly enough, it is not Solomon who contends for the throne against him, but Nathan the prophet and Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. It is worth noting that Absalom, Solomon's brother, had previously desired a throne and met a tragic end in that pursuit. But we don't read of Solomon longing for the throne. Now, it is written that David ruled 7.5 years in Hebron, and therein are listed the sons born to him there, in 2 Samuel chapter 3 and 1 Chronicles chapter 3. Then David rules 30 years in Jerusalem, and his sons born to him there are listed in 1 Chronicles chapter 3. I include this to show that Solomon was likely in his late 20s or early 30s when he began to reign, just like his father in 2 Samuel chapter 5. Solomon is of age and mature, having grown up in the king's palace his entire life. It is also worth noting that nowhere else in the Old Testament, yes, the whole Bible, do we read of God approaching someone in a dream to ask what they want. Typically, it's the other way around that people come to God with their wants, and usually in trying times. God shows us by what the inspired writer has given us what is truly the state of Solomon's heart. Now, do you remember what God was willing to give David? We read in 2 Samuel chapter 12 and verse 8, "And I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your arms, and gave you the house of Israel and of Judah. And if this were too little, I would add to you as much more." It is quite likely that God would have done the same for Solomon. But in a stunning turn of events, this is all that Solomon wants. Read in verse 9, "Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this, your great people?" Solomon understood that he was already king, yet what he truly desired was to rule God's people the way that God desired. It is no wonder that Solomon could write the book of Proverbs so that all who wanted wisdom might partake. Contained within the book of Proverbs is the golden key that unlocks the purest and most precious of true wisdom, and Solomon gladly tells us what it is that we may have it as well. In Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 7, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." He repeats it again in chapter 9 and verse 10. "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight." Imagine that you are in the place of Solomon, and God offers to give you whatever you want. What would you ask of God? And Lord willing, let's meet here again tomorrow and look at another question from the Old Testament.